Dr. Ben, you can take it over.
Good morning, folks. We're here today to deal with a extraordinary, timely element in the non-fungible tokens, but they also are a portent for new practices of commerce and society. And so it's very important that we spend some time thinking not only about the today, but the portent for new prospects and new practices going forward in commerce and society. I'd like to ask that when you have questions or comments, please put them into the QA venue, and that we have also, there's a chat as well, but it's better sortation going through the QA, and we certainly appreciate that assistance for you today. We have an extraordinary, awesome, not only theme, but panel. We have absolutely amazing panel, an ideal panel for this with very multiple perspectives associated with not only the growth of the domain of NFTs, but the aspect associated with the implications to different stakeholders in different roles. So we'll take a look at that. We're going to hear from Krista Kim, who's a digital artist and a remarkable pioneer in this domain of the NFTs, and she brings a variety of dimensions of value to looking at how this is happening for the creator community and how it's reshaping some of the dimensions of initial creators and long standing creators that have followers. Harish, we're going to hear from Ledkar, who is the founder of Superworld, and you'll hear that story. For those of you that don't know about Superworld, it's certainly an amazing overlay of the what I call the rendered and the real aspect of it, as we look at an overlay of rendered reality over the real world that we are dealing with in an augmented reality fashion. We get to hear from Yang Adija from Turner Sports. So we have an existing enterprise that has an existing community and existing content, and look at how we maneuver and leverage the aspects of the assets that happen in sports, the residual aspects from live activities as well, and strong implications for NFT prospects and possibilities there. And we're going to hear from Sean Rowland from BitPay. And obviously, as we look at a pioneer in the crypto domain, especially in cryptocurrency activities, BitPay's created a number of trust brokerage services and products. And so we get to see the implications of the commerce infrastructure underlying these activities also. And we're going to hear from our main chief here, Roop Singh, in just a minute. And Roop is the founder of Intuit Factory, and also is the co-director of the blockchain activity here and TAG. And so we're going to spend some time. First, I've asked Roop to set some grounding and give us some terminologies and basic concepts. I expect that we have a broad spectrum of noobs to nerds in this audience, and we want to get an understanding so we can have a great grounded discussion, because we've got an awesome set of perspectives going forward. Let me turn it over to Roop.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Ben. Welcome, everybody. As you know, my name is Roop Singh. I'm the founding co-chair for the TAG Blockchain Society. And I'll first give you a very quick update on the society, since a lot of these faces and people are new here. And then we will get into the meat of the panel as well. So let's start with some community news. Forbes published a Blockchain World 50 2021 list, and our own board member, Andrea Semenov from Kona, which is Coca-Cola One North America, was listed in the top 50 world blockchain by Forbes. So congratulations, Andrea, and thank you for your support being a board member. Here in Atlanta, Borderless Capital launched a $10 million NFT fund just to fund NFT companies on the Algorand NFT ecosystem. So great things coming from them. Here's the core team, just to remind you, if you have any ideas or suggestions for the events, please send it to our event chair, Jagrati Solanki, who's the CFO at BitPay. If you wish to sponsor any one of these events or be part of our ongoing series, please speak to Haley Middlebrook. And if you have any questions about joining, please reach out to Melissa Davis. You also see our list of amazing board members, so thank you for their support. Our next event, after this one, rest of the year, these are the dates, so mark your calendar. And I must thank our Gigabyte sponsor, TIPCO, for leading their sponsorship of TAG Blockchain Society. If you wish to send an interest or know more about the society, just go on to tagonline.org and look for the Blockchain Society. And there's an interest form you can fill out, or you can reach out to us for being a sponsor as well. So with that TAG Blockchain Society update, let's get to the topic of the day. Let's see what's happening around the world. If you have been watching the space, you will know that an original Banksy painting had been burned and turned into an NFT, sold for about 70,000 pounds. Grimes, the artist, sold about 6 million worth of digital art, essentially videos, as NFTs. A 10-second video clip sold for $6.6 million. One of the world's most conservative organizations, the BBC, gets into the blockchain tokens NFT space with collectibles for Doctor Who. So great news for the fans. And your favorite, Tom Brady, has launched an NFT company. Well, if that doesn't get your attention, a columnist who was writing about NFTs at the New York Times decided to turn his column into an NFT, which was then sold for 560,000 of your US dollars. How does that feel? NBA Top Shot in the sports world, a tokenized video moments from NBA games, and people have spent over $230 million, and I think that number is higher, in fact, buying and selling, trading digital collectibles of NBA highlights. And very recent news from yesterday, maybe you didn't think about this as a use case for NFT, but not just Top Shots or tweets, IBM is about to turn patents into an NFT. So what the heck is this thing that we keep talking about everywhere? NFTs, simply stated, are unique cryptographic tokens that exist on a blockchain and cannot be replicated. These are essentially assets, and we'll talk about what that even means, that are non-fungible. What that means is you have to understand what is fungible first. So if I gave you a US dollar bill, one bill is the same as the other bill. It could be exchanged by law. There is no difference, although the serial number on the bill may be different, but it functions the same way, and it has the same fungible quality or exchangeable quality, wherein NFTs are the opposite of that. They're unique, and they cannot be exchanged from one to the other. One asset looks different from the other. And when I say asset, it could be any asset, any physical or digital asset could be minted, i.e. put on a cryptographically secure blockchain as an NFT. Another way to think about this is the NFT is a title of ownership or a certificate of ownership of a particular asset. So if you owned a car or even your phone, we could mint that into an NFT, and that would be your title of ownership of that particular asset. So what we really need to get this economy going is an asset, as I just described, which we all consider valuable. Could be any asset, a share or a bond, or an NFT. A mechanism for identifying its ownership, so a certificate or a digital certificate, aka on a distributed ledger blockchain. And then we need a market of buyers and sellers to determine the price and to provide liquidity to make this trade possible. So here's a view that might help you ground yourself as you hear about NFTs. What can be turned into or minted into an NFT? Video game virtual goods, art, collectibles, domains, or tweets, or other IP assets, music, photos, videos, or any such tokenized asset could be considered an NFT. And here are some characteristics. Although you will notice that some of these are aspirational, for example, standardization and interoperability on different chains of NFTs, and we'll get into those discussions in a minute. They're tradable. They're much easily tradable than way we used to trade assets before. And there is a provable way to prove scarcity by them being on the blockchain or by having a limited set of those assets. So questions arise. Is this a tulip mania? Another one? What is the technology that underlies? These are the questions that people have asked me over this journey. Well, what is considered value? Why are these even valuable? Why is anybody buying or selling these? It questions what is art. How do intellectual property rights and ownership are asserted and hence preserved? How can we make sure that somebody does not copy your NFT and claim it to be their own? Creators and artists are becoming part of this business model of their own art. So how does that really work? Is this a cultural phenomenon fueled by technologies, or is it just a fad? What about sustainable use of technology, the energy that blockchains consume? And how can you become a creator and transact in NFTs? So depending on what you've heard so far, you are either very happy about it or skeptical about it. There are arguments on both sides. On the Ford side, NFTs are a better mechanism to identify and capture any asset. This will become the infrastructure for ownership and buying and selling, trading of digital assets going forward. They help the creators become part of the business model in much more controlled way than they were before. Artists can now earn royalties on their art on an ongoing basis, which was not really possible in the original way of doing things. Now we are monetizing assets which we couldn't monetize before, or we never thought of, like a tweet. Who would have thought of that? It becomes the basis of new commerce in society. If you look at the other side of the argument, there's plenty of those too. You may be skeptical. Is this just a tulip mania, a passing fad, a waste of energy? What is the value in these assets anyways? And maybe it's just ego aggrandize. You just want to do it, put your name on it and say you did it, and hence you're doing it. I'll let you be your own judge. The conundrum that we arrive at, and this is the question I asked in my TEDx talk on this topic last year, which was titled, How Digital Assets Are Changing the Future of Value. So the question is, are we now assigning value to things that have no inherent value? Or because of today's technology, we can identify what we find valuable. And to answer all of these questions, I turn you back to the panel. Back to you, Dr. Ben.
Thank you very much, Roop. We'll shift over to panel discussion in just a moment, but certainly I think that's a great grounding for a basic understanding of the underlying activities. But Beeple mania aside, There's some interesting activities going on here. From my professorial structure, I see a movement on decommoditization going on that is transforming markets. And I also see a decolonization going on that's transforming marketplaces in radical ways. And I think we'll see that in our discussions with new forms of patterns of interaction. So these technologies are liberating possibilities that have been somewhat restrained by our inability in the past to deal with the complexity of decommoditization and the complexity of decolonization as we get into disintermediating and restructuring old infrastructures and old systems and old sovereign governance activities as well. I'd like to start by asking each of our panelists to offer a few comments and thoughts. My view always is less about a biography than by your ideas you are known. And I'd like to start with Krista in part because she's a remarkable representative of the creator community that we're talking about here. Most folks think of these as associated initially with artists because that's their exposure on music artists and visual artists as well. And certainly she represents that community, but she represents a lot more. She's been a digital creator and digital designer for quite some time. So she's not a noob to the digital asset creation domain also, but she certainly has hit the ground running with several of her activities like the Mars House activity, and I'd like to hear a little bit about that. But I want to go into your story, and then I want to shift general to your comments and views on creators and artists themselves moving into this space as well. But let's start with what excites you about this and what's taking your journey as a pioneer in this space.
Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you, Roop, and thank you for having me. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here to share my ideas. Well, first of all, I want to say that I have been creating digital art since 2013, when I departed from painting. I used to be an expressionist painter. And then I decided to enter digital because I knew that digital is the future and light is the new ink. And I'm very much interested in Marshall McLuhan, and the medium is the message. And so I'm very much interested in how the medium of digital affects us socially and our human civilization, our psychology, our physiology, every aspect of our lives. And now here we are at a turning point for digital art, where the medium itself now becomes an asset, and it transforms, what we're creating not only as an art form, but also as an asset. So for myself, when I created the Mars House, I didn't have the NFT in mind. In fact, it was created last year during the height of the COVID crisis. My practice is all about healing, creating healing installations using screens. And I wanted to create a house that heals using large LED substrates of the ceilings and floors and architectural installations. I thought this is the direction of architecture in the future, because obviously digital art become much more pervasive. And so when I created it last year, it was more of an expression of my meditative design concepts. And then along came December, when I discovered more about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then I discovered this super rare platform. I applied as an artist and I got whitelisted, and I minted my first artwork in February. So understanding the landscape of the NFT space, it was really sort of an adaptation of the gallery model and the model of selling art that's already on traditional platforms, but you know, transferring that into the NFTs. So you're basically presenting a 2D image or video of an artwork, and you're auctioning it or you're selling it on the platform. Very limited, because I see the NFT as a vast potential as a medium, as an art medium. In fact, I see the NFT as the supreme art medium of human civilization, because it basically encapsulates ideas that change the world into infinity as a permanent record of what we have done on Earth. And so for me, I felt, well, this is very limiting. I want to actually go more into the second generation of NFTs, which will be 3D digital assets that are programmable and are experiences in our real life, okay? And when we're actually engaged in an augmented reality lifestyle, when these Apple AR glasses come out into the market next year, I predict that we will be walking around and enhancing our real life with 3D digital assets on the Superworld platform, which will be the AR internet interface of our actual real world. So Mars House is really a presentation and a study, a thesis that you can actually have a home that is digital and that it has value. And that is why it is historically significant.
When you consider other artists and the entry, those that are new, you were new to some aspects of this space just in recent times. One of the remarkable things that I found in the Clubhouse settings, where you run into Snoop Dogg and The Game and MC Hammer and even Paris Hilton and others, yes, that the discussion is more often than not about helping others. And it's more often than not about training youth and bootstrapping them into these spaces. It's not a selfish exploitation or promotion. And certainly I expect that's a carryover from art creation, whether of all forms. But it was a nice cultural norm to see.
Yes, I believe that there is a major cultural shift away from divide and conquer and colonize, more into collaboration and co-creation. And of course, these platforms facilitate that model, because every artist is able to have full sovereignty over and expression over their work, with direct communication and relationships with collectors. And this has never been the case before in history.
And that sounds like a disintermediation of the traditional channels to the market in many ways as well, and as a liberating for the artists that they are not tethered to the old buyer and seller arrangements.
And it's also a major transformation that we will see in our societies physically and basically as a cultural phenomenon, because when you actually eliminate an intermediary segment of a market as art, you are basically freeing up billions of dollars in capital back into the creator's hands, which then can be reinvested into beautifying our societies and giving back to our communities and making real change, real social positive change through NFTs, which the Mars House actually is. We are doing that. We created a foundation from the sale of Mars House, where the majority of proceeds is supporting a world tour of meditative sound and healing public art installations around the world. I'm collaborating with Jeff Schroeder, who is of the Smashing Pumpkins. He is composing amazing meditative music on his electric guitar. And we are touring. We're starting in Toronto in August. We're going to Venice, Miami, and around the world. And this could not have been possible if it were not for the NFT model.
I certainly like the way that the altruistic elements of the culture is influencing the seeds of this new culture. And we'll get back to this further. I'd like to shift over now to Krish. And Krista mentioned something that I've been in virtual world technologies for decades now, since early days, and many of my students are Habbo Hotel and Club Penguin alumni as well. I still have an island in Second Life. The individual that built the properties in my island were exactly artists like Krista, who wanted to liberate themselves, build in a world that didn't have the same physics. So he was a hotel designer, but he wanted to be liberated from the physics of Earth. And so he could build in this virtual world domain. And certainly we have a lot of folks who have grown up with Pokemon Go in the AR side of the house that introduces a critical concept that you're dealing with as a central part of your theme in Superworld, which I'd like you to describe, that deals with the overlay of virtual over the what I call the rendered over the real, that combines both the real GIS information as well as rendered content associated with those geographic locations as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Superworld and where this is going?
Sure. So I'll give you a little bit about my background, and I'll go into kind of what our vision is for Superworld. So, I come from the traditional business space, start off in management consulting, investment banking on Wall Street. I did venture capital for a number of years, started a venture capital fund in Europe. Earlier, after that, I was early at a company called TopTal, which is a talent marketplace. And then about 5 years ago, started a film, television, gaming, and virtual reality studio in Hollywood with Michael Bay and my partner who did Call of Duty, the Modern Warfare series, and Ghost. So it came from the space of virtual reality, augmented reality, feature film, television, all kinds of linear entertainment. That studio is called Rogue Initiative Studios. We're backed by a lot of the top AR, VR venture capital funds in Silicon Valley. So came from that space. And what happened was, as you aptly stated, Pokemon Go came out and became this worldwide sensation. Lots of people around the world started realizing the power of augmented reality. A lot of people don't know, but it was the fastest company in history to hit $1 billion in revenue. And still doing really well, exceptionally well. Actually, they had one of their best years ever this year. So, and at that time, I got together with my co-founder and we thought, what, if we can't build the next Pokemon Go, what if we could build a world? What if we could build a place where the next 1,000 Pokemon Go's gets built onto it? And I'm using Pokemon Go as an analogy for adding digital information to the real world. And so that's kind of the high level vision of Superworld is, how do we build an immersive world where anyone can create a world of their own, regardless of what their passion and interest is, whether it's digital art or music or education or science or, travel. So I have a world, you have a world, brands have worlds, and all of this content can be seen around us in augmented reality. And to be technically true, you can also go into totally virtual environments as well. And so Superworld is a combination of, as an analogy, Pokemon Go, which is again adding digital information to the real world, meets Foursquare. Foursquare is an analogy for data. On the data side, I think what really differentiates what we're doing is our why. A lot of people are very disillusioned by social media now. And, I have 2 kids and, I'm worried about them starting to look at their phones and starting to go into, this social media networks. And, at Superworld, we're all about improving the real world and enhancing people's lives. And so the data aspect of what we're doing is very important. And that is, we want data monetization, permissioned use of data, data integrity. And a lot of that comes from the blockchain as well, right? And so our high level vision at Superworld is, Earth and a heart. How can we improve the real world? How can we improve your real life? So we don't want people to get sucked into Superworld as a virtual world. We want Superworld to come to you and enhance your real life. So if you're, if I'm with my daughter, I can show her what a whale looks like in augmented reality, and she can experience that in the real world around us while she's learning. But she doesn't feel this urge to always go into a virtual world. I'm a humanist, so I like the real world interaction. And then the third part of Superworld is Monopoly. So we've divided the surface of the Earth into 64 billion virtual blocks. Each block represents about 100 meters by 100 meter space on top of the real world. So all of the places around the world that you can imagine, you can buy them in Superworld, and you're buying virtual blocks of land. And if you buy those blocks, you're buying them as NFTs, as we've defined. On the Ethereum blockchain, we're blockchain agnostic, so we'll be on other blockchains. But when you own a block of land, you get a share of all the economics that happen there: advertising, transactions, e-commerce, digital commerce, data, analytics, gaming. And so on top of that virtual land, we're also building applications. We have a mobile application that's in open beta right now. We're building an NFT salon that allows you to create digital assets, and we're building a developer API so other applications can build on top of Superworld. So that's our high level vision.
Well, thank you. And in your honor, I created I leveraged a filter to render both the background and
Nice.
a foreground for us as well. But your notion of
Amazing.
the scripting of the artifacts and smart contracts embedded, that the rules of your space are definable, just as in Krista's case, the rules of the asset that she is selling, she gets royalties on subsequent sales. So they're persistent. The notion of persistent rules that you can establish, you as the creator can determine and establish persistent rules that will exist beyond beyond any short temporal window. Is that right, Krista? That and yours as well. And so it marries a lot of things together that looks at augmented reality, at virtual reality to full immersion. That's a part of it, and different patterns of engagement and rules of engagement. And I think that's a great complement in there. If we move to Yang and the corporate side, Yang, we've got you have it's the best of times and the worst of times in your world. You start with a community, you start with content in your enterprise, and but you probably start with a lot of with what I would call an actuarial problem, that your people are old line sports people who are probably often resistant to whole new concepts of what might be offered or presented in a marketplace. And so in some sense, you've got the best and the worst of it. You got a running start on it, but you've also got some headwinds within your own organization, possibly, that Hrish doesn't have, because he's inventing his whole space. Any comments about your go forward activities, Young?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yes, so I'm with Turner Sports, Warner Media, and yes, so we definitely have great communities and great properties that we love to leverage and love to lean into. And to your analogy there about a running start, we have a running start. We actually have great momentum. But when you have great momentum and great mass and it's going in one direction, you have to turn it into another direction. That is very hard to do. And I've been fortunate enough that we do have forward-thinking leadership within Turner Sports, and willing to play within this new space as it's sort of being formed and growing. One of the things that I sort of like to say is, as a large organization or even large brands, we we almost have no choice in terms of where this is going to go. This is where the direction of how the future would look, and we have to decide whether or not we want to be sort of owners in this new space or renters. And because the space will be built, we will continue to have our IP, but how do we want to use this in a way that's natural and endemic to the new environment? And the best way to be able to do that is to get to know it in the growth phase of it, so that we can help shape it and we can be part of what that might look like. And I love the stuff that Krista and Rish are talking about, because those are the things that we are looking to see. How can we implement some of the content and the IP that we have to help shape that? One of the things that we're looking to do, and again within the sports space, is we've tested out a number of different things, and we've done NFT drops in which we've created content. We've also been obviously part of the NBA Top Shot and have seen that as well. And we are really getting to better understand, our users, our fans, and how it can help create engagement with them. And those are things that are truly important. But we're also looking to take a step further than that as well, and really looking into the extended utility that NFTs can provide. There is a sort of economic environment in which we can empower our users in completely different ways. And this might seem odd from a large company in which typically in the past brands are used to being centralized and controlling, but we truly believe that the ability to empower and send value back to our fans and our users is accretive to the whole space, is accretive to us as well. So really figuring out how to do that in a smart way that utilizes that's only really capable with NFTs, because it allows you to create that property right ownership. And I think we're still yet to see sort of the real power of enabling people to have digital property rights ownership. And by giving that, you do a number of things. Not only does we allow the value to go to those creators and the owners of it, but I think at the same time, we allow them to then become innovative in how they use that digital property to, certainly benefit themselves, but potentially also connect and benefit others.
Has the Top Shot story influenced your management to sort of accelerating their prospects, a sense of prospect?
So I can say, I've been fortunate. My direct management, they have been willing to explore the space prior to, sort of the hype cycle of NBA Top Shots. But I will say that the success of NBA Top Shots has made my conversations internally much easier in terms of people understanding, okay, I get it. So
you're bringing something to the table, and it's called revenue.
Exactly.
People pay great attention to. Well, in a few minutes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, I have a quick comment on what Yang said.
Right.
So Yang, I just want to underscore this, and we've talked about this before. I am so grateful and pleasantly surprised to see an incumbent organization leader use these words, and I want to underscore them for the audience and everybody. You said, we could not ignore this. We don't have a choice. So often a lot of incumbent organizations don't recognize the disruptive forces because they're so, they're sitting in their comfort zone and they think the world wouldn't change. But it is a testament to your innovativeness and vision that they can see that and you can make these statements. And that's big, in my opinion. It takes a lot of courage in big companies to say that.
No,
go ahead, Yang.
No, I appreciate that. And look, we are in a place that we have to think about our fans and users, and the more that we can lean into technology or even just other opportunities to do that, the better off we are as brand and IP owners and participants in the space.
It can be extraordinary transformative of the relationship you have with your fan community, as well as enhancing and enriching different dimensions of their experience. The fan journey is going to be transformed down the road, and you're going to be a critical part of that evolution. We can see that as well. Let me move on to Sean. When you guys have been a pioneer absolutely in the trust brokerage domain of crypto, and especially on the digital currency side of the house and transactional elements that have been a critical part in BitPay as you evolved, and certainly been a strong pioneer. I was introduced when Steve and one of your co-founders was in one of my classes about 7 or 8 years ago and tricked me into buying some Bitcoin. And but in doing so in the lecture, I forgot my password that I put in and doing the demonstration buying, and wallets were at the time when wallets were not very mature.
No.
And so it's only 0.6 Bitcoin, but then it was only $100. Now it's considerably more. But in any case, I'm not saying Steve owes me that money. I'm not saying that. But I would like to know, because you guys have been there from the beginning in looking at transactional elements, trust brokerage in transactions in the domain, the role that you're playing in the evolution of this space.
Yeah, Doc, I'll make sure to pass that message along to Steve. He owes somebody some money. Yeah, I think if you've been in crypto for a little bit of time, you probably have I used to have a certain amount of crypto story. That's a pretty common one. But yeah, so just a little quick background on just BitPay payments. That's really what we focus on, is payments. Specifically cryptocurrency and digital asset payments. So you could pay your AT&T bill using Bitcoin or Dogecoin or ETH or a lot of these different digital assets. And we connect merchants, with customers who want to use those to pay for things. And a lot of times people will bring up and think about payments, and they're like, okay, especially compared with, some of the literally mind-blowing things Krista and Rish, we're talking about. Payments can seem a little bit boring, but actually I think it's really cool and interesting in this space too. And honestly, is integral to enabling everything that's been talked about up to this point by the panelists. And that's just the way that we exchange value between each other, and even entities and entities, or a person and an entity. And I use entity because there's so many applications to this, and and with that exchange value on a daily, by second, by millisecond time frame. So again, payments, moving money back and forth. What it does, and Krista put it a really good way, especially when thinking about artists, and you guys use the term decolonizing and disintermediation, I think that's the word, and breaking down and cutting out a lot of these middlemen. I mean, that's why BitPay from the beginning started in 2011, was like, hey, we want to build tools that allow small businesses and large businesses and consumers to get rid of intermediaries, as many as possible. NFTs do the same thing with these with digital assets, work and land and the metaverse and augmented reality being, some of the use cases, or trusts and homes and real estate. And I mean, a million different can go into NFTs, and we all have to be able to value something and then exchange it for each other as we improve our lives and our families' lives, etc. So that's kind of just the big way that we think about payments and try to. And what blockchain and NFTs do, what's so unique for this is, again, it's that disintermediation. I can pay you for anything, and you can send me anything with no middleman. And what that actually does is, maybe it saves you, let's say 2% on the transaction, maybe 1%, maybe 0.001%. on that transaction between two of us. It saves us money. Well, that really adds up in a huge way. Suddenly over time, I can take, I've got 5,000 extra dollars because everything maybe costs a little bit less, or it's less to make, or I can earn a better, easier directly by what I produce. I can take my family on a better vacation, or I can, make a nonprofit donation. And that's on a small personal scale. When you start cutting out middlemen for payments between things, things become easier to do. You can get paid easier, and more, and allocated more to your output also. In a lot of different cases, and that's kind of back to the creator economy. BitPay, and we talk about that in a little bit in today's world with NFTs, because I could go on and on about like the 10, 20, 30 years from now. But today, one way that BitPay really thinks about it is in these marketplaces, these NFT marketplaces. Just how do I buy an NFT? People are still going to be using credit cards and debit cards for now. Well, we really believe that for now. We believe at some point all assets will be issued on a blockchain, like hands down, whatever that is. But eventually, and for a lot of these marketplaces, the artists and the people who, all different types of artists get the cryptocurrency directly. Maybe it's a dollar stablecoin, maybe it's Bitcoin, maybe it's Ethereum. And what we want to do for BitPay is we want to enable those creators and the different market participants of that economy to get paid how they want to get paid, and accurately and immediately. Because maybe I want to send you Bitcoin, but you'd rather receive a fractional Tesla share. I just use that since it's a top of mind right now. But again, when you can get paid and how you want to get paid, and that really changes the concept for cross-border payments. And specifically for NFTs, it's great that I can send you money and you can send me money directly. But when I can buy something from, let's say it's a gaming NFT, an asset in a game, when I can buy that from someone in the Philippines and me sitting right here, and they can earn a living, playing games or creating over there, or, maybe I can create something sitting in the small room that millions of people love, and I can directly benefit from that. Those payment mechanisms are so important. When a country can hold a payment, a corporation can hold a payment, but with crypto and NFTs, it makes them all work together. So there's no stopping that interaction.
And that raises the issue of governance and sovereign state rights and expectations in sovereign state agencies that are covered by the banking and gyro systems now too, who are suddenly interested and less about organically rejecting these elements in here. But you also mentioned the issue that both Krista and Hrish were dealing with, which is the creator-centered proximity. I'm bringing everything closer to the creator by that disintermediation and that decolonization. I think the Robin Hood story, GameStop and Reddit, and all those are decolonizing movements as well too. And in some sense, Yang's story is about a new colonization, extending the colony of associations and relations that they've historically had. Let me ask a question to the entire panel about the IP and control and governance. And Hrish, in your case, what right do you have to sell somebody the virtual extent, the mineral rights or aerial mineral rights of my property to Krista, who of my property on here?
Yeah, so that's a great question.
Damn it, I'm going to sue you.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So just to be clear, Superworld is a virtual layer that covers planet Earth. And we've divided the Superworld platform, which covers Earth, into geospatial blocks, divided by longitudinal, latitudinal blocks, right, of space, right? And so we've in those blocks, we've given the ability for anyone to, own those blocks as NFTs, right? And those blocks don't specifically cover any private locations in specific. They cover the earth, right? And again, our platform covers the earth as well. So we're giving you, as an owner or a buyer of NFTs in Superworld, a ability to kind of own part of our platform, which can be accessed from anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So to be clear, that's exactly what's happening in Superworld. I'm not saying that you're buying Buckingham Palace and now you're the Queen of England. I'm saying that you are buying a location that covers planet Earth on the Superworld platform, and you get a share of any of the commerce and economics that happens there: advertising, e-commerce, digital commerce, data, analytics, and gaming.
In your virtual world, only in your virtual world.
In our virtual world that's mapped on top of the real world. Right. And then I'm also enabling anyone, from sports organizations to fashion to music to digital art, you name it, to start creating digital assets in the form of NFTs as well, and put those assets into Superworld in our virtual world. So you can, again, that's again IP as well. So either you own the IP or you have permission to create, you're the creator of the IP.
What if you put something offensive on my against the alignment with my property?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So just to be clear, in any location, so let's say as a location, we're talking about Central Park in New York, right? In any location, anyone has the right to put any content, and the content that they put in that location, as an example, goes in their world, so their filter of the world. And there could be an infinite number of filters. So if I'm in Central Park, I could look at your filter of the world. I could look at Krista's filters of the world. I could look at Yang's filter. I could look at Turner Sports. I could look at an infinite number of filters, and I could switch from one to the other. And so if you have someone who's put something in their filter of the world, there is a chance I might not ever see that in Central Park. But if it is against, our community guidelines, and again, Superworld's all about building a better world. And so we're really, want to have content that enhances people's lives, improves the world. And so if it does violate those kind of community guidelines and terms and conditions, then that content wouldn't it'll be curated out. As though we're curating content in a way.
Yeah, I just want to raise the question, as we start taking rendered over real and GIS, that we need to have that consideration. Krista, is that why you chose Mars? No, nobody to offend.
Actually, I basically just chose Mars because right now we have a real fascination with Mars travel with SpaceX, and I'm a real fan of Elon Musk. And I just thought it would be a great, catchy name and destination where everyone's fascinated with space travel, and especially going to Mars. But really, Mars House can be represented and placed anywhere in the world, including your own house in augmented reality on Superworld platform. So the idea is that we could upload and experience architecture as an art form in our real time and space anywhere. And it also transforms architecture itself. Can you imagine an architect can actually present a plan of a building, a tower in the middle of the city, and present it to the stakeholders and make design decisions on the spot? Now, this is like revolutionary technology in terms of design and communication, planning.
So Yang, what if I put opposing sports team activities right into the stadium that your folks are playing? You're going to encounter this kind of resistance down the road as you start getting into overlays and deep fake structures that are going to be a part of your assets. How are you going to protect against misinformation?
Yeah, look, and that's a concern that we'll certainly have to deal with. I think what Harish is doing is that they are creating sort of that world. And there's going to be so many additional things in terms of, you know, what the metaverse looks like and how we build that out. What we're looking to do, and I think we're dipping our toe in and have probably the experience to help, is being a creator and creating that experience. And so we won't own the whole metaverse, and we're, you know, certainly aren't quite in a position where we can create the world. But we are in a position where we want to create unique experiences. And so obviously coming from a bigger brand, there will be guardrails that we'll have to put on that, so that within our brand experience, that is, it's the experience that we would want to deliver. But we know that within this metaverse where you can switch from one to the next, that there will be experiences butting up against ours, or within sort of the world against ours, that won't be built by us. And so that's essentially how we look at it, and that's why it's so important for us to get into it now, because we feel that we're in a position to help shape it and create experiences that we think will be unique and that our fans would like.
A question from the questions in the Q&A raises the issue about voting, NFTs and voting, and role as identifying, is this a good mechanism for resolving some of our vote issues? Sean or others?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'll take a stab at that. So yes, that concept is a very distinct possibility. There's so much more that goes into digital voting, honestly, than just the NFT aspect. But I'm not sure who put the question out, but what that really ties to is one of NFT's largest and most interesting, I think, use cases, directly tied back to the real world, is identity. I mean, what's more than one non-fungible, non-interchangeable asset than me and you? And so when you think about that, suddenly now you directly have a guaranteed ownership representation in the digital world. That is when things start, when we talk about blockchain voting, and when we go talk about these different experiences in super world and whatnot. So again, blockchain or NFTs is huge in the digital identity, especially when you think about refugees moving across borders and immigration and all kinds of different things. It can be a really positive thing to be able to move about and have the internet essentially and other parties know who you are. And NFTs are going to be a big thing in digital identity,
especially as we lose trust in the sovereign record or an institutional record, that we need a trustable substitute. I'm a refugee from Syria, and I owned this property, and the state might not acknowledge that. And so we have to. Other views on NFTs and voting as an engine in voting? Another question came up about the issue. If I have, Krista, if you had a painting in the past, and then now you have a rendered artifact that's a part that you've minted, and NFT, those have different values and different valuations. And the questioner seems to be disconcerted that that there are different valuations. They're independent. I look at something like Linkin Park putting out an NFT at the album release. It has nothing to do with the artifact of the album or the music in there, as well as more a commemoration and a substantiated commemoration. And so my NFT of your painting is exactly that same kind of thing. Is that how you look at it?
Absolutely. They're absolutely completely different worlds. I have stepped into the NFT field, the arena, from the art world. So I know firsthand the challenges where I have artworks that are, very high value. And when I started minting on Super Rare, they sold for so much less than my actual market value in the art market. So it was a learning curve, and it's a completely different collectors community, a completely different market with completely different rules. So yes, there are those challenges as an artist that's stepping into the NFT arena from the traditional art markets. However, if you have the right strategy in place, because really it is about producing consistent good work over time on these platforms that builds your credibility as an artist that people trust and want to invest in your art, who love your art. You build a fan base, but it does take time. However, that time curve compared to the traditional art market is way faster, and it's much more accelerated than the traditional market. So for me, I basically, I will mint actually existing artworks that are printed and attach NFTs to them, and then they will be of higher value because you have the NFT digital artwork tied with the physical. So in fact, for me, and the value of that is higher because you have both coupled. But if they're separate, then they would be less. But these rules are being written right now. There are no rules. It depends on the artist. The artist makes the rules.
And the artist can embed the rules as well. Go ahead, somebody.
Sorry, Dr. Ben, I wanted to, if I could jump in on the conversation about value. And I know there's been a number of conversations or questions that ask about, well, NFTs, you're creating, people are buying it and it has no value to it. And, why are you attaching value to something that is just made up? And I would challenge that thinking, in that in the real world, we often attach, monetary value to a number of different things. And, we can go to, a car, one car, both cars do the same thing, but one is priced a lot higher than the other because there's social value that's attached to that. I know there's the experiment that was run in which two roses were sold. One was sold for a lot more than the other, and the one that the rose that cost the most sold out. And that's because people attach the fact that if it's more expensive rose, therefore I'm delivering greater value to my loved one because I bought the more expensive rose. And granted, roses within themselves, if we take a step back, actually don't have any value in terms of a gift giving. It's something that we've attached value to as humans. I'm giving my, significant other a rose, and we've attached value to that rose, and therefore a monetization value to it. The digital space and the NFTs and the ability to have those digital property rights ownership and transfer it over is the same thinking, but empowers the creators and their communities to attach the value that they feel with those, and therefore, what it will be worth. And I know we're getting caught up a little bit right now because the high prices on some of these NFTs feel quite frothy, but this is the hype cycle that goes through that helps everyone understand the possibilities, so that the creation of the possibilities can now start to take place.
May I add something? May I add that there are a lot of comments about the high speculation in the art market right now, in the NFT market. But I have to add, in a conversation with one of the top collectors, Crypto 888, who happens to be a collector of my art, he has one of the greatest art collections of the NFTs space in the world. And, in a conversation with Rish and I, actually, when we were speaking about Superworld, he revealed that right now is probably one of the key moments in history to collect NFT art, that it is a great opportunity because it is a transitional, disruptive period of history in our civilization. And therefore, the art that's being created right now by key artists, by certain artists, are actually a sound investment. And he's creating a museum and a huge collection right now.
Dr. Ben, if I can come in on that.
Yeah, well, but before I let you in, I want to acknowledge that you always keep saying that values in the eye of the beholder. It's really in the wallet of the buyer in determining that. Go ahead, Roop.
So the value as beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And we see that happening. And I want to address some comments that skeptics put out, which is, oh, this is a new way for quickly making money. So if you really think about it, and Krista gave a very good example and instance of that, have you tried to create an NFT? I know some people who are not artists by trade, some of them are in this event right now, who've created an NFT, tried to sell it. What happened? Did it sell? How much did it sell for? So the point I'm making is the value of your art also is related to your community, as we've said. So Krista and a lot of other artists that we now seem to hear about, like people, oh, his art sold for 69 million. This is crazy. But what people don't see is the years that they have spent creating work and then curating this community of art collectors and patrons, and having a brand and having a brand name, which is valuable and it considered a worthy investment. So that's the part that people miss, and they just wake up and look at this space and say, oh my God, it's so much money. How did this happen? Let me create one. Well, really, have you put in those hours and created a brand name for yourself? That's the question.
Well, certainly the decolonization issue comes to front as well, and that's the creator-centered reality that makes it their world. The
Right.
Creator is the center of that world, not an adjunct to it, not a feeder for a pipeline.
Right. And just a quick comment on something Yang said, which is very pertinent, that we in the real world also associate value with things that were not considered valuable before. That's a normal maturity cycle of assets and hence value. So to say that, oh, this has no value, well, how do you know? How does one define a value of a house in a neighborhood? There are some mechanisms that we have all agreed upon, and these are the same types of mechanisms or common shared agreements and understanding that we are getting for these new interesting assets. So just to say, oh, these are speculative because I haven't seen the value being defined before is ridiculous. We are starting to do that now, and it's the same mechanism that you assign to other real world assets that we consider valuable at the moment.
Many children, boys, grew up with selling trading cards and collecting trading cards as well. If you go on eBay right now, a Mickey Mantle 1956 card is $1.5 million. A Honus Wagner card, even though these are not singular items, they have value that people of a perspective would say is out of reason, beyond reason or not. So it is as you say, in the eye of the beholder, but more importantly, it's in the willingness to pay of the buyer. And so we'll see ultimately in the end of that. There's a question that says, I'm not sure, that's by an anonymous individual. Are there competitors in this space currently? Complications? I'm not sure. How many forums and exchange forums are there for NFTs?
Yeah, so I'll take a stab at that. There is, I wouldn't call them competitors because that would assume that it's a limited market and everybody's taking a pie off the market and they're competing for the same pie. What's happening is the market is just being formed. We actually don't know what the limit is. The pie is being expanded. So there are players in the space, and by space, I mean the NFT marketplace space. So there are marketplaces like Super Rare that Krista mentioned, Nifty Gains, a few others, and Superworld is launching their NFT salon and marketplace. There's going to be plenty of those, depending on which NFT use case you choose. What are you really buying and selling? And I think there will be somewhat of a specialization of marketplaces as well in the future, where one would be known more for, let's say, videos, the other one for video game virtual goods, the other one for NBA, video highlights, and then other leagues would get in, and each league or each sport would have their own sort of marketplace. So the market is expanding at the moment.
Sure, and may re-rationalize again down the road. I think we sometimes focus too much on the chaos of the day instead of the prospect and possibilities and desirabilities. So what I call the world of can and world of should. We spend a lot of time talking about what we can do and less about what we should do, and set up a roadmap. Before we end, and this is called a warm call, guys, for those of you who are long from school, I'm going to ask you in a minute to give me your 5 years down the road. What would amaze today's viewer? What would amaze them about the practice in these markets and the leverage of these abilities and capabilities in just a simple 5-year horizon? That's all I'm asking. What can change in 5 years? My gosh, not much, surely. But let's. Does anyone want to start? What comes top of mind to you from a 5-year horizon? I'm not going to let you wander around the today.
I can give a little bit of my thought, and the reason why I'm jumping first is because I think mine will be, I see mine as a road to, and I just, again, I'm amazed by the stuff that Harish and Krista are doing. So I think mine will be on the road to where they're going to go. So I'm interested to hear their 5-year. So I think one of the things is that people are going to be amazed at how much you're going to be able to actually earn within the digital economy. And it's not going to just be from price of value, appreciation, of sort of a collectible, but there's going to be a stronger economics that will be built within this digital world that more people will be able to participate in, and that will be, actual jobs and opportunities for people to work within that space, and not just building it, but actually creating and interacting with the NFTs.
Sean, that speaks to you. Look at gig economy evolution and so forth. What's your world going to be like 5 years from now? That would amaze the people of today. You're muted.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Kind of echoing a little bit what Yang was talking about, the potential to earn. Look, like the gig economy is like, oh, I drive for Uber. It's a one time and it's just me and I earn money just with time, like DoorDash, etc. Now we do stuff like the creator economy, where it's like, hey, I can subscribe to a journalist newsletter, or these other newsletters, and the journalist gets that money. The next, I think, which will be crazy in 5 years, is something that I've honestly heard called the participatory economy, where suddenly maybe even if you just like or retweet or whatever some different spread of an idea or an asset is, you actually can earn, say, micropayments. I think micropayments in over the next 5 years are going to become a much bigger narrative as the blockchains that all this is done on scale. So I think the concept of micropayments is going to be is a big one in 5 years.
Well, I look at all of you, and the moniker comes to mind of YOLO. And to you, I know with you of all your ages, YOLO means you only live once, and that brings a focus to experience. What you don't understand is, to my age in the boomer group, YOLO means your life is over. But so in your case, if you're looking at that centering around experience side of it, we want to understand how it enhances that seeking of experience and seeking of accumulation of experience as well, not a accumulation of wealth, because all of you have addressed issues of seeking an aspiration higher than monetary wealth.
Well, I'll jump
ahead,
on
Rish.
that experience part. So here's the prediction.
Yeah.
Like we saw a shift from the internet that now last year, if you watched some things on Netflix or Amazon Prime, you would have found that a lot of movies and shows were actually being released on these internet streaming platforms first, even before they got into a theater, because we couldn't go to theaters last year. So in the same way, you will see creators of all kinds, be it artists, painters or visual artists or movies, released as NFTs first. That would be their go-to mechanism to engage with the world and engage with society. And that way, creators will have much more direct relationship with their audience and interact with them much more directly than they do today. So watch out for your favorite movie coming out as an NFT that you could own first, and then you give the rights for everybody else to watch it. And maybe you earn a portion of those royalties as everybody else watches it. That's all.
Rish.
Sure. Yeah. And, I think that all the things that have been mentioned here are I think, very much part of the vision that we see in the future. I think that in the way that we are thinking about what is going to happen, I think Krista really has well defined that and explained it about a lifestyle. And I think that going to be, as AI and machine learning and these technologies that kind of come in and start doing these more mundane tasks, creativity is going to be the thing that really separates what we're going to do in humanity and creation and building, and the ability for all of us to create structures where we can share in that economic value. And so I think we're going to be living and working in the real world, but enhanced by virtuality in our real lives. It's going to enhance how we do anything, how we access information, how we educate ourselves. And I think we're moving to brain-computer interfaces. So you're not going to require the hardware. It's just going to be around you. You're going to see things, hear, understand, learn. So Superworld, we're cross-platform. We're hardware agnostic, software agnostic, blockchain agnostic, and we plan to, again, kind of enhance your life. Try to focus on how we can do that, and I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we plan on trying to build amazing products to allow people to create, discover, monetize, and improve the real world. That's our goal, and I think that's gonna be part of every part of our lives, whether it's entertainment, education, whether it's travel, whether it's religion, you name it. And I think you're not going to see this separation between physical and virtual. It's going to be just reality. We call it super reality at Superworld, SR. So there's AR, VR, MR. We call it SR, super reality.
And I think to underscore that point as well, there's going to be a liberation of creativity and imagination that's been constrained in part by the historic culture and practice and commerce and society that will be liberated to it. Superworld reduces the cognitive load it takes to be creative, and enables and unleashes an opportunity to be creative. And now you can create value, you can derive value and recognition from that creativity. And so I completely agree with you. That's so very important. Even in our classes, we deal with the troika of technology, imagination, and creativity. And I separate those two because I know imaginative people that are not creative and creative people that are not always imaginative as well. Krista, you get the last word.
Thank you.
5 years from now, 5 years from now.
Well, I like to think about children and their experiences in an augmented reality lifestyle. And really, you know, for me, what really warms my heart is the possibility of having a transcendent culture where children can actually interact and play with each other, transcending geographical barriers, transcending political barriers, religious barriers, all barriers, and having direct social access to one another through Superworld, through avatars, visiting the pyramids, visiting the Great Wall of China, interacting with other kids from other countries with translation, okay? You can communicate and you can share ideas and you can educate each other. And I think this is a wonderful, wonderful future that we can build for global peace and humanity.
And hopefully that's our roadmap as we see a liberation of the individual, a liberation of community, and a liberation of society, that these technologies and abilities, and it's a marriage of that decommoditization that allows things that had by an industrial age been forced to be commoditized to in order to do business efficiently and effectively and to reduce complexity. Complexity doesn't matter anymore. And so we are liberated in that decommoditization to create new rules and empower. And what Roop knows I call enchanting, that we enchant digital things as well as real things in the world, or as Srish says, you meld them together. They're indistinguishable. There's not a barrier between them, and that the colonization that Sean was talking about as well, as we start to look at restructuring the old intermediaries. It doesn't mean getting rid of all intermediaries, but it means reducing what I used to call neo-intermediation in the 1990s. So I was looking at stock markets, new forms of intermediation that are lean and much more people-centered directed. I'm in the group with Vint Cerf on people-centered internet, and we're looking at flipping the scale here. Our issues of information incentives are legion. We have perverse incentives right now to collect information, and hopefully we can move away from that. These technologies show great promise in all that. And Yang, I think, to the point of renegotiating the whole relationship with what a fan is now and down the road, it's going to open up huge opportunities for Turner Sports and beyond as well. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Roop if you have any final words. You're an amazing group with different lenses and insights. It's a multi-ocular view of these possibilities that these non-fungible tokens create new possibilities for both art and commerce and society in general. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Well,
Roop, any closing words?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your moderation and bringing us all together and leading this discussion. I have personally learned quite a bit. Thank you, everybody, for joining the Tag Blockchain Society events. Please join us for the next ones. Go ahead and sign up. And if you have any ideas on next events, please reach out to myself or Jagriti Solanki. for ideas for the events. I must thank our Gigabyte sponsor, TIPCO, for their sponsorship. If you have any, if you would like to sponsor these events, please reach out to Haley Middlebrooks for sponsorship. And you will see a few new developments in the Tech Blockchain Society coming up. We're forming some communities of interest or working groups for some topics, and you'll see them being announced in the next few weeks. Look forward to seeing you all in the next event, and have a wonderful day and go create an NFT.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.